So we want to make sure that we're not stopped at all. Like if he were here, we're not going to get an accurate measurement because the table is stopping our movement. Okay, so make sure that it does not stop our movement. We ideally want him to be at 90-90. Let's do it this way. The best way to show it, but yeah, it would be lower and he would be more at 90-90. Okay. All right, so this one is a good one to measure because we don't have anything in our way. All right, and we want to make sure our axis is going to be dorsal to the wrist joint and it's going to be near the capitate. All right, so I know the first group were able to find the capitate. What's the acronym? Some lovers positions they cannot handle. Okay, so capitate is pretty big. Okay, so you want to make sure you're here and you're going to be, you can be like this. Okay, if you're doing it this way, there's also an alternate 2 different ways to do it, and you can be lined up with a triquetrum. Okay, so if you're having trouble palpating the triquetrum, you can certainly do it this way if you're able to have a goniometer that'll allow that. Either way is fine, whatever works for you. But you want to make sure that you start him in neutral position. Okay, you're not on the styloid process. Why? That's not the joint. Where's the joint? The wrist. So you've got to be here at that triquetrum. Okay, say that 3 times fast. All right, so you want your proximal arm to be lined up with the ulna, and you're going to be using the ulna styloid process as well as the olecranon as your reference point, and you're going to line the moving arm up with what? What is this? The 5th metacarpal. Very good. Okay. Now, why do you not line it up with the phalanx?
It can move.
It can move, it can be bent, okay? And this is actually, remember when you're measuring goniometer, the joint, the bones that connect at the joint, all right? So we're measuring ulna, 5th metacarpal, and where they come together at the wrist joint, which is the triquetrum, okay? So then we're gonna have him flex the wrist down, making sure that it is not stopped. Is it stopping you or are you good?
It's stopping a little bit, not much.
Yeah. All right. See where that finger's going? We're not going to follow that finger. Okay? And so we are at, I've got 90. And what should our norm be for that? 80, so you got a little bit more. So would we need to go passively?
No.
We would not have to go passively. But if we did, we're going to push and find our infill, which he has a lot of wrist flexion. And he has, wow.
From baseball.
Yep. So he has 100, and I would say 102. Very firm infill there. Okay. Now, I suspect that since he's got a lot more wrist flexion, he may be limited in extension. So let's look at his extension. So we're going to do it the same way. We got the same lineup with our triquetrum. We're going to line up with our body of our ulna and our 5th metacarpal, and we're going to have him pick up the wrist. Okay, and so I am getting about 70. And our norm on that should be what? 80. Okay, so a lot of times if you've got excessive on one end, you're going to have less on the other. So would I do passive? I would. And so what I would do is I would see where is my infill. Okay, and so I can get full range of motion, and I've got a firm infill with him. Okay, now in order to do ulnar and radial deviation, okay, if we do not stabilize, what is he gonna do?
Cheat.
Big time. And that's not, I mean, that's just normal, okay? We all do that, okay? So we've got to make sure that we've got to stabilize here. And if you don't, you're not gonna get the appropriate range of motion, okay? So we're gonna do radial deviation first, and we're gonna look at our capitate again, okay? So if you did the alternate way for your wrist extension and flexion, you already have your capitate lined out here, okay? And you can do extreme flexion here to find that, okay? So if you're over your capitate, where is this arm gonna be?
This one?
Yes.
The forearm.
So you're going to midline of the forearm. What are you using as your reference point? Your lateral epicondyle right here. And what are you using here? Third metacarpal. So third metacarpal is always your midpoint reference in the hand. The second metatarsal is your midpoint reference in the foot. Okay? But always in the hand, it's third. Now we're not following this. We're following this metacarpal right here, okay? So I want him to radially deviate, right, okay? Now, I want you to keep your hand as flat as you can, right? And so that puts him at 30 degrees. So 0 to 30 degrees of active right radial deviation, okay? Now, that's actually more. So I wouldn't do passive, but if I did do passive, I'd do it the same way, making sure that I'm lined up with the third. And he's actually got 35 there, 0 to 35. I'll put the norms up on the board for y'all, I'm sorry. Now for ulnar, the same way. You're gonna go this way. Okay, wow, that pitching, huh? So I've got 0 to 50. All right, so he has excessive. 40 should be the norm there, so I wouldn't need to do passive, but if I did, I'm gonna be about the same with a firm infield. Now, some people are gonna have a hard infield there because they'll get to bone on bone, and he almost did. Okay, now, if you come in here for your lab test and you're like, okay, all right, I need you to ulnarly deviate, just do it. You know, he's going to use rotation, okay? And you're not going to get the right measurement on this, okay? Again, always stabilize the proximal segment. Okay, so that is all the wrists, and the last one then is the forearm.